So this is NeXT Intellect's Module 3, Lesson 5, Iteration and Refinement, Improving Outputs Through Multiple Prompt Adjustments. Iteration and refinement are the process of improving AI outputs by making small adjustments to your prompts and trying again. In this lesson, you'll learn how to collect feedback on AI responses, identify what works and what doesn't, and systematically adjust your prompts to get better results. This skill is essential for every role using AI because the first output is rarely perfect. The real work happens when you refine and improve based on what you learn. The targets for this lesson to be able to define iteration and refinement in the context of prompt engineering, identify what feedback tells you about an AI output, adjust prompts using at least 3 different refinement techniques, test multiple versions of the same prompt and compare results. Document changes made to a prompt and explain why each change improved the output. Apply feedback from a peer or supervisor to revise a prompt. And recognize when a prompt is good enough versus when it needs more work. Key vocabulary for the lesson: iteration, refinement, feedback, version, parameter, test, control, and iteration cycle. So if we think of a time that we wrote something, anything such as a text message, an email, or an essay, so definitely writing a lot of emails for work, times that you realize that that's not how you wanted it to come across, you might completely get rid of a sentence and rewrite it, or if you're like me and have Grammarly going in there too, where it can, and I just have the free version of it, it'll suggest rewrites for clarity, everything like that, and catch any small mistakes that I make. But that process of iterating through your versions of that email before you send it, obviously you're wanting to get it to the point where it's professional enough for the context, or quote unquote good enough for the purpose. If an AI gave you an answer that was close but not perfect, what would you change about your question to get a better answer? This goes to the previous one. If it was a formatting issue, you could give it how you specifically want it to be formatted. If it was the answer was vague, on being more specific. And then you could always follow up with that prompt on asking questions or providing it examples of what something like what you were looking for. Through that iteration process of making it better. And sometimes you just start a new chat. That way it's not continuing to feed off of that original feedback that might not have been the best. Your original prompt is still in its in that context. Okay. Or you could put in the chat and that continued one, like, let's start over and here's the new prompt. But I have found even when you do that, sometimes you can tell it's still referring to a very similar output to the other. So when in doubt, when you get to that point, you could always just create a new chat in the tools such as Gemini or Chat GPT. And the fourth one, of course, if we ask an AI the same question 2 different ways, we'll probably get different output, different answer, the same as we ask a question in a different way of a person, depending on the words used. If you change the example that you give it, if you change anything that are in the parameters. So for iteration and refinement, the agenda today, you'll learn how to improve AI outputs by making changes to your prompts and testing again. We'll cover what feedback is, how to spot problems in AI responses, techniques for adjusting prompts, and how to know when you've got a good result. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to take a weak prompt and turn it into a strong one through systematic refinement. So iteration means doing something, looking at the result, making a small change, and doing it again. Just like when we're cooking, trying out a recipe for the first time, taking a taste of it at the point of to see does it need any more salt added to it and or any sort of a seasoning, tasting again and going until it tastes right and what you were expecting of it. So that's an example of the iteration process. Definitely think of writers on rewriting a line over and over again trying to get the perfect sentence. Or if they were writing on paper and you think of like in movies and TV when you see people do that where they'll just crinkle up the paper and throw it in the trash and start over again. Ultimately, you're repeating a process until you have the intended result. So with AI prompts, you ask a question, you read the answer, and decide what could be better. You could change your question slightly and ask again. This cycle repeats until you get what you need. Why iteration matters? Because your first prompt is usually not going to give you the perfect result. Okay. Maybe the AI misunderstood what you wanted, or gave you too much information, or used language that was too technical for your purpose. Rather than starting from scratch every time, you learn to make small targeted adjustments. This saves time and helps you understand what the AI does and doesn't understand. So rather than starting from scratch, referring to you don't have to on every single prompt when it doesn't give you what you're looking in the first place, open up a new chat because that then would be wasting time. You could look at what is the little feedback that you could give it to get it back on the right track right away. It might just take a little bit of a change to your initial prompt to get it back on track. Professionals in every field use iteration. Writers revise drafts, designers adjust colors and layouts, and engineers test changes. Iteration is how you get from good to great. The three parts of feedback. Feedback answers three questions about an AI output. First, what worked well? Second, what didn't work or was wrong? And third, what was missing or unclear? When you read an AI response, ask yourself these questions before you decide to refine. For example, if an AI writes a job application email, you might notice it's polite and professional, and that would be the what worked, but it's too formal for a startup. What didn't work, and then it doesn't mention a specific project that you wanted to highlight. That would be a detail that was missing. This feedback guides your next prompt. Spotting problems in AI outputs. Learn to recognize common problems so you know what to fix. The AI might misunderstand the task, give you information in the wrong format, or use words that are too simple or too complex, give too much or too little detail, or leave out important information. You might also notice the tone is wrong, like too formal when you wanted something more casual, or the length is off. Sometimes the answer is partially correct but not complete. Recognizing these problems is the first step to fixing them. This goes back to never getting it to generate output and just assuming it's perfect and then using it and say an email to someone else that we check it for accuracy or that it suits what we were needing in that moment and not taking it for granted that AI is not perfect and that we're responsible for what we create with it and send, especially for if it's shared in work sense or if this is something that we share online with others, that our name is still attached to it and reputation. So technique one, adding clarity and constraints. One of the easiest refinements is making your prompt more specific. So instead of just saying write about coffee and then hitting enter on that prompt, we might say write a 150-word description of the health benefits of black coffee for a health blog. The constraint about word count and audience and topic makes the AI job clearer. You can add constraints about length in words or sentences, your audience who will read this, what the tone will be, how you want it formatted, and the level of detail. Is this something geared to this goes into the role too it takes on? Is it an expert at explaining things to like a child? Okay. Or being able to explain very technical terms in layman's speech. More specific prompts usually get better results. Technique two, you could actually provide an example of what the good output would look like. If you want a job interview answer and you say, write a strong answer to tell me about yourself, that's vague. But if you say, write a strong answer to tell me about yourself, similar in tone and structure to this example, the AI can match the style that you demonstrated. Examples are especially helpful when you care about tone, format, or level of complexity. Removing or reframing, sometimes the best refinement is simplifying. If an AI response is too long, ask it to do the same task in fewer words. If it's too technical, ask it to explain it in simpler language. If it's covering too many topics, ask it to focus on one or a few. You can also reframe the task entirely. Instead of asking write a cover letter, you might ask write the first paragraph of a cover letter that shows passion for the role. Narrowing the scope of the task often improves the output because the AI can focus its effort on a smaller, clearer target. And testing and comparing versions, the best way to know if a refinement worked is to compare side by side. Write down your original prompt and the AI's response. Make one small change to your prompt and run it again. Keep both responses visible and ask, is the second one better? Sometimes the change makes things worse, and that's valuable information too. Keep a simple table or document where you record the prompt version, the change you made, and whether it improved things. This helps you spot patterns and what adjustments work best for different types of tasks. So knowing when you're done, you don't need perfection. It should be what's good enough for that task or to an acceptable level. If you're writing a quick email to a friend, one iteration might be enough. If you're writing a job application or a business proposal, then you might iterate multiple times. Ask yourself, does this output accomplish my goal? Would a reader understand it clearly? And does it reflect the quality I want to represent? If yes to all three, then you're done. If your answer is no or maybe, keep iterating. So you're setting that quality threshold of what is going to be good enough. That'll help you know when to stop refining. Now, this was geared more to like text generation because do they understand it from reading it and the quality? But we think of like image generation for like marketing. Same thing like do would the intent of the image you created come across clearly and that there's like not too much going on visually and the quality, does it have AI imperfections, blurry things? If this is going back to the examples of like hands being incorrectly proportionate and everything, and multiple fingers and stuff like AI would do, then that's where you're going to want to make the picture more realistic. If this were a video, right, to what level is the quality for like the Coca-Cola ad that they made? If it's generating like their polar bears for the holiday campaign, that they look realistic, that everything fits like color schemes, that they like, and that it gives like the, normal feelings, that they like to have of nostalgia and everything in their Christmas, commercials and campaigns. Iteration in practice. Let's say you're a social media manager writing about a post about a product launch. Your first prompt could be write a social media post. It's probably going to give you a generic paragraph. So your feedback could be it's too long, not exciting enough, and doesn't say when it launches. Then you refine it by saying write a 280 character, so giving it a length requirement, giving it which social media outlet, so Twitter, and the product launch when it is, okay, and then what's the tone going to be like, and even if you wanted to add something like an emoji. It says better, but still generic. We could refine again to write a 280 character tweet announcing our sustainable. So, what is that product launch? Sustainable water bottle launches Friday at specifically noon using fun language that appeals to more specifically who our audience is outdoor enthusiasts. Now it's specific, constrained, and targeted. Each iteration focused on one problem. It's the same thing. I'm going to use Gemini for this. And then write a simple starting prompt about any topic you choose. For example, tell me about careers in technology. Run this prompt in an AI tool and read the response. And identify three problems with the output using the feedback framework. One thing that worked, one thing that didn't work, one thing that was missing. And then make your first refinement. We have the example here. So I'm going to use the example that it gave, and you will feel free to be able to put in a topic of your choice. Very vague on just telling me about careers in technology with no specifics. New chat. And remember, we're going to be looking for what worked, what didn't work, and something missing or something that we definitely want to add. So we have a little intro text. We have a numbered list with bullets of 1, 2, 3, 4, the modern path into tech. We have a video link that was put in here for our ranked every tech career pathway. The technology sector is incredibly diverse, offering paths that cater to builders, analytical thinkers, protectors, and creative planners. The landscape has shifted significantly while knowing how to code remains valuable. The modern tech economy places an immense premium on infrastructure, security, data strategy, and integrating AI into existing workflows. So we have careers in tech can be broadly categorized into several core pillars: software dev, cybersecurity, data science, analytics and AI, and cloud computing. Then we have the modern path into tech. Modern employers highly value a combination of practical skills, adaptable problem solving, and proof of ability. Okay, so it did tell us about careers in tech, but then I do like that it went ahead and separated out some of these tech careers and told us the shift and what's happened. So maybe we want to see, like that's missing, create a graph that shows the shift in traditional software dev roles to roles that incorporate AI and vibe coding over the past couple of years. So it gave us some in code version, but we do have a chart graph there. Let's see. Estimated share of development workload, shift towards system design and pure orchestration. It's letting us train it on it, gave us multiple so we could say which one was more helpful. I would have watched say and see if the video was a good resource or not. We could follow up on the original thing of simplify of information on careers in tech so I can maybe you were at a job fair for share with junior high students for a job fair. I need to go to the restroom real quick. I'm gonna leave this up right here. Okay, notice that updating it to be for junior high as the students as the target audience. We have this finding your tech superpower, the little emoji of a rocket. We have images added for each of these, the builders, the digital defenders, the brains, the sky captains. And how do you get started now? What they do, the new twist. So each of them have a what they do. And then it's suggesting some things we could do for follow-up. Would you like some quick interactive trivia questions or a hands-on activity idea you could use at your booth to get the students talking? And so you could always use these suggestions that it gives on and saying like, yes, create the hands-on activity idea. Just because it might not suit your purposes. If there's certain materials that you would have on hand at something like this, you could tell it that, and then maybe you tell it to generate like 5 hands-on activity ideas. That way you could pick from those which would be best rather than telling it just to create one. So we updated it to get more like what we were looking for. If I wanted to give it a word limit or not, we definitely saw big differences on that. Got rid of the video links and sources and everything because I went back to just focusing on explaining those careers in tech to my modified audience. So my prompt itself removed some of the other information that was shown at that one time. If I did have an example of someone's presentation, like a slide that I liked, that I thought would be geared towards that audience, that's how we could add an example of saying create something like this. Okay. Remember, we could also generate images in our same one, like in Gemini here, going along with this. So maybe if I wanted it to do for each of the builders, so we could pick one. How about the digital defenders? Change it to create image. Okay, using the term digital defender, that is what we wanted for cybersecurity. Crack codes, fight hackers, save the data. The digital frontier needs you. We have ones and zeros computer. They are wearing digital defender. We have this cartoon style, so that's how we could tweak it if we wanted to. And then if we liked these characters to use them again in other context, we see that they could have a global outreach in this career space. That first one was the builders. Okay. And it did carry over our characters in different positions and everything, so that shows us how easily we could continue that across the other ones, or go ahead and tweak it now on what we're wanting to give the example that if you needed to take it and put it in a tool to edit out certain things, you could ask in here to remove things, but you might need to be more fine detailed on what you erase. Sometimes you could do things like that. I wanted to see if, for instance, if there was anything on a badge that was questionable for the content, or also since they have global outreach, if we didn't want it to show just the U.S. flag, if there was anything that was like if you wanted to then remove everything, so you could go in and put your company logo on the clothing, then of course that's what you're wanting to do is remove all the other things. So it didn't do what I wanted because it didn't keep the image the same. I said remove the badges from the boy's jacket. Okay, so no badges on there, but it's not the same image. And well, that's generating. So that would prepare you for your lab. You'll choose a real task that you want AI to help with, such as writing an email, describing your skills, explaining a concept, and so on. Write your first prompt as naturally as you would without overthinking. Then run the prompt through an AI tool and save the response. Then you'll write down specific feedback using the format on what was one thing that worked well, one thing that needs improvement, and one thing that was missing or unclear. Based on your feedback, make your first refinement. You could choose one of the techniques like add clarity and constraints or provide an example. Run the refined prompt and save the response and rate it. Did it improve? Write down what changed. And then repeat those steps at least a couple times, making different refinements each time until you get to that good enough for what you need it to create. When you feel it's good enough, stop and save all versions with your ratings in your notes. And then you could write a short summary explaining which refinement technique worked best for you and why. And that would lead you to your portfolio artifact, common problems and their solutions that you may face. Note in the best practices, one change at a time. It's best to test one refinement at a time so you know which change actually improved the output rather than trying to tell it to change 5 things at once. Then you don't know which of the 5 things made the big difference. Avoid giving the feedback. I told it specifically what I wanted it to do in that rather than just for that image saying it's not good. Okay. So by telling it rather than it's not good, saying the tone is too formal for a startup. Remember to establish what is going to be good enough for your quality threshold. So if it is acceptable at 80% of the is it acceptable if 80% of the output is useful? Or does it need to be publication ready? This prevents endless iteration and helps you know when to stop. And we still have a different, but I said original image. So let's see, that still was a brand new because it was different. So then what you could always try to do is copy that or put that image back in there. And by this point, if it didn't work after I told it and was like, no, the original image, and then I just straight up copied it back in, then I'm probably not going to be doing it in this one. I could take that image and put it in something where I can manually edit it, or I could try to open a new chat, put it in there, or use like ChatGPT and put that image in there. So this time, she's facing that way, he's facing that way in the robot. This time it removed them. Now it did give him a different color jacket. So see how it keeps that context from some different ones. So we're getting this kind of amalgamation of things. Now we have this green when I wanted it just to be this exact same image. But then I question, okay, is this good enough then for the purposes now that we've removed any of the logos? Okay. We'll see since it has internet search if it has access or could find the logo to put on there. And it did. So we have Mississippi Coding Academy on the back thing. Then you could repeat the same process with um the girl in different images if it was always on the back of their jackets or not. So that would be an example of kind of reiterating through that process. Notice if we were going to say if it was good enough, we do have some AI imperfections of cursation engine online. So it looks like that's not a word. Some of our robots aren't consistent on that one with this little head, they're not exactly the same, not as clean as this one up front. We would check, of course, anatomy, things like that. But that was a give you a hands-on example of going through there in that refining process and iterating until we get it to the point where it was suitable for our purposes. And in this iterating, you'll be able to use some of those steps and other prompts that you have of the techniques that you use of like if you have good luck on um, or good results in giving it an example and trying to give clear direction and the parameters up front, then use that again across different tasks. But depending on what you're doing, you might have remember you're going to have your prompt library of prompts that have worked for you before. So that could also go away with your steps in your iteration of what you normally do to help save time. So like if output A isn't good enough, what are you going to do to refine it? And then are you going to take that and put that in? Ask yourself, are you going to stay within the one tool or are you going to use that output as input into another tool? But that will complete lesson 5.